In my literary inquiry, how do we develop the vocabulary of the deaf learner to prevent them from becoming a low-functioning deaf adult? So the article that I did choose was titled Enhancing Reading Ability to Prevent Students from Becoming Low-Functioning Deaf as Adults. The stress was basically placed on intervening at an early age and focus on active learning opportunities and teaching strategies for reading fluency. It is utmost important that educators identify and implement effective strategies. Key things: modeling appropriate language, hands-on activities, visual aids and prompts, peer-to-peer tutoring. There is an emphasis on research-documented approaches to the teaching of reading. Interventions include the strategies as phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary development, reading fluency, reading comprehension. Reaching the deaf child in the early years is basically the most important thing to do. There has been research done on the brain that shows that language and literacy capabilities, the learning capabilities of the brain, are changed by their experiences. When the child becomes about age 11 or 12 years old, if those language or linguistic experiences have not come about or surfaced in helping those learning capabilities, that the brain does seem to turn them off. So, as we all do know, learning a language as a young child is far easier than later on in life. So I did mainly focus on vocabulary. However, language in general is a big issue for deaf and hard of hearing people. So the grade level I chose was kindergarten or first grade. This lesson could benefit. The book I did choose, Fancy Nancy and the Posh Puppy. I specifically chose Fancy Nancy because anyone who knows the Fancy Nancy book series, Fancy Nancy does use large words when she speaks. And in the classroom, playing on the word sesquipedalian, a person who uses big words when they speak. So, the purpose, goal, objective. After listening or paying attention to Fancy Nancy and the Posh Puppy, students will know the meaning of specifically chosen words from the storybook. And we are specifically targeting vocabulary development. The teacher poses the question, I am curious about, I am interested in knowing, I am wondering, and elicit responses from the students. Take a picture walk to see if, just by looking at the pictures, if our questions were answered. The chosen vocabulary words are written on chart paper or on the board. Setting the purpose. Explain to the students, before we read the story, I want to introduce some new words that we will read in the story, and to please repeat each word after I say it. After repeating all the words, let's read the story and make sure to listen for today's vocabulary words and to think about how they are used in the story. Let's think about the vocabulary words. The word The word delicate means blank. Does anyone remember how this word was used in the book we read? Ask the students to answer the questions. Refer to the book to show how the word was used in context. Do this for each vocabulary word. Now let's practice what we have learned. So the word delicate means easily breakable and dainty. What was the word? When a person gets very old, her bones get delicate. When you were a baby, your parents held you like you were delicate. I'm going to name some things. If you think the thing is easily breakable, say delicate. If not, then sign the word no. And in sign, the word no is, and the opposite, the sign for yes is a head nod, no. So the choices are a baby bird, a hippopotamus, an expensive camera, glass, a plastic cup. So going through each of the chosen vocabulary words in that pattern, and then what are the following activities to be done within a timeline? I would say roughly 6 or 7 days. Another following activity, the word journal. The word journal is basically 3 blocks on a paper. Write vocabulary word. The second block, write the meaning of the vocabulary word. The third block, draw a picture for the vocabulary word. And these are pretty much mini lessons, 10 minutes, just reintroducing and building mastery of the vocabulary words from the story. The following day, children work on a vocabulary web wheel, graphic organizer. So we review the vocabulary words. The teacher does model how to use the graphic organizer. Asking the students, do we remember the new vocabulary words? Do they think they can draw a picture of the word? What else can we draw about this word? Does anyone have any words that we can use to explain this word? So the teacher modeling and showing the students what is expected, then handing over to the students that it's their turn to complete the vocabulary web wheel. Notifying the students that they can use pictures or words to fill in the wheel, each wheel. The next day, children can work on what's called a word chart, context, and connections. And this is another graphic organizer to connect text to text and text to world aspects from the story. And the teacher would have a larger version on the board to model to the students. Inform the students that we will continue learning our new vocabulary by completing the word chart. Ask the students if they can remember the vocabulary we learned, who can tell the meaning of the word, who can give examples of the word. We need examples for the chart. Who can tell a non-example? Because when we introduced the vocabulary words the first day, we had choices of non-examples, and the one example was correct example. And ask the students who can make a connection between this word and something we have read in the book Fancy Nancy. Where else may you find this word? Who can make a connection between this word and something in your life? How can you remember this word? The next day, or the next activity, children create a word flip book using their vocabulary words. The word flip book is basically blank. Of course, always modeling to the students before expecting. So the children write the vocabulary word, the definition, sentence, example of the word, always being able to be tweaked for different levels. Another activity, children play the game Win, Lose, or Draw. So same as the board game, the vocabulary words are written on cards, and one student draws the card. No one sees the card but the person drawing on the board, and others raise their hand and guess. So that's a fun game to reinforce the vocabulary. Another activity is making the vocabulary words into a game of bingo, giving the students blank sheets, or the teacher preparing the sheets himself or herself, writing in the vocabulary words. The caller calls out the meaning of the vocabulary word, but does not say the vocabulary word, and the students place the marker on the vocabulary word on their bingo sheet. Another activity called Whirl a Word activity. It's basically the children act out the word, and it's basically the same as, I think it was I'm thinking of a game show, but also pantomime. You can play in groups or in teams, basically acting out the word and guessing what the word is. So similar to Win, Lose, or Draw, except you're acting instead of drawing. So descriptions of accompanying activities, plans for engaging readers with the texts. Various ideas that I had in mind is the teacher can tie into the story the visual arts aspect of utilizing role play. Children can role play using puppets, or the children can type a skit, or type or write or draw about parts of the story that related to a personal experience in their lives or something they can connect to in their lives. Children do love typing on the computer, so they can type and Google a picture to attach to their writing. Children can possibly retell the story using a different animal choice in place of the posh puppy, or they can even play with using their own name instead of Fancy Nancy in the story when retelling. Fancy Nancy is just a girl who likes to speak in big words, like a sesquipedalian, and that children can add their own new big words in their stories. Children can share stories about their own pets or a pet they wish they did have at home. So as a result of, in reflection, as a result of creating the plan and conducting the mini, I learned that I realized the importance of reiteration, using different avenues, and hopefully not boring the students. Possibly adding additional words each day if I found the vocabulary was appearing too easy, and taking more vocabulary from the same book. I did choose one area of language arts to focus in my narrative, which was vocabulary development. There are multiple areas to focus on, as phonemic awareness, fluency, phonics, which those were, like I stated in the beginning, language arts in general, and every aspect is what a deaf learner has difficulty in. So, as a result of the inquiry, my potential future questions are, so when a deaf student does come to us at age 11 or older, what reading strategies are we utilizing? How are we helping growth of this aged student, being that no one is helpless? We can do something to help. What modifications should be utilized with the younger students? What modifications should be utilized with the older students past 11 years old? Should material be on grade level with the older students? Or should we use below grade level material with the older student that comes to us past 11 years old? So I hope that my literacy inquiry was comprehensible, because going into my initial question was, how do we help the deaf learner learn to read? I had found an article basically talking about how do we fix or help a deaf person not be a low-functioning deaf adult. Low-functioning deaf adult would be difficulty in finding a job. In generally speaking, a deaf person may not read past the second grade level, or anywhere from a second, third, or fourth grade level. For a person to be able to go to a vo-tech school or a trade school, they do need to read on at least a sixth grade level. And looking for jobs, you need to read higher than a fourth grade level. So, basic idea is reaching these deaf children when they're young, targeting reading strategies, targeting and identifying the issues, and utilizing reading strategies. All right, thank you.